Hi guys, so I've been doing this channel now for about 2 months and I've gained some really lovely subscribers over that time who have just been super supportive throughout my time coming off Mounjaro. So I thought what I would really love to do is actually just tell you a little bit more about who I am, a bit more about my backstory, about how I got into the situation where I had to go on Mounjaro in the first place, and just really tell you a little bit more about who Katie is. To start with though, for anyone who hasn't seen my videos before, I was on Mounjaro for about a year. I've been off it now for about 2 months. I lost 60 pounds on the weight loss jab. So this channel is basically documenting my journey coming off. I'm really trying not to regain the weight. I've actually lost 4 pounds in those 2 months. So we're doing all right at the moment. So basically I had a really healthy childhood. We had very good home cooked meals. I learned to cook a bit when I was younger as well. My mum was amazing. Honestly, I cannot fault her whatsoever. I was a very fussy child though. And when I say a fussy eater, I was horrendous. So my issues with food probably did stem from being a fussy eater when I was little. One example would be that I wouldn't eat onions. So my mum, bless her, if she was cooking something like a spaghetti bolognese, she would literally have to make me a separate portion without onions in it. So I was really fussy and a bit of a nightmare. And even though there weren't issues in the household, we didn't have treats on tap, we didn't get everything we wanted, I would raid the treats cupboard. And I did get very told off about it if I did do that, because they were meant for our pack-ups, but I would easily binge on the food. So this started from when I was quite little. So I think that this is probably where my issues of food, like with food, actually started from. I think as well, something that probably didn't help was the fact that I was an 80s baby. So I grew up as a teenager in the 90s. And honestly, the diet culture back then was awful. You had this whole heroin chic look back kind of pushed everywhere. You had magazines calling celebrities fat who were not fat. I remember people saying Britney Spears was fat when she was just on stage looking like a normal woman. It was horrendous. Then you had things like the Special K diet, which was literally encouraging women to have a bowl of cereal for breakfast and a bowl of cereal for lunch, and that was considered food. It was just such an unhealthy culture to grow up in as a teenage girl. And I think when you grow up surrounded by that, it really distorts your idea of what healthy actually looks like. So even though my mum was super healthy, everything around me wasn't. Now, when I was a teenager, I got very badly bullied, like severely bullied throughout my whole teenage years. And that has affected me for most of my life, if I'm honest. I find it very difficult to build relationships with people because of that. I can't trust people. And it's really had a massive effect on how I view food. I used to spend my money on food, comfort eating, binge eating from the age of about 14, as well as spending lunch money on packets of cigarettes and going down the park and drinking cider. Wasn't a naughty child, it's just what we did back in the day. And I was actually one of the more well-behaved ones at school, but you just kind of follow the crowd a bit. So yeah, I was eating really badly from 14 years old. So we're looking at nearly 30 years. And honestly, I think for most of my adult life, I've never really had a good balance with food. I've either been starving myself or I've been binging. I've either been far too skinny or I've been obese. There has hardly been much in between. There have been very few periods in my life where I've actually been genuinely healthy physically or mentally. I was quite overweight when I was 16, and then I lost a lot of weight when I was around 17 or 18. But then I found alcohol properly when I started working in a pub. The weight piled back on really easily in my early 20s. I moved out of home at 18. I had my own money. I was drinking quite a bit, eating rubbish food, very unhealthy, didn't look after myself. I was more bothered about going out and partying. I moved down to London. It was just parties all the time. Then I got in a relationship in my early 20s, which lasted around 5 years. And honestly, that was probably one of the most stable parts of my life. I was actually a very healthy weight for pretty much that whole 5 years. For the first time in my life, really. I ate well. The person I was with was lovely. He used to cook a couple of times a week. I used to come home from work and the house would be clean. He'd be cooking for me. And honestly, it was probably the least disordered I've ever been with food in my life during that time that I was with him. So from the age of about 23 to 28, I was really healthy. We used to go out for lunch every week. I never used to even look at the calories. I'd just have what I wanted and I'd never even think about it. It was crazy, and I wasn't excessively exercising, nothing at all like that. I just had a really healthy relationship with food and with myself. And honestly, that was probably the best that I've been in my whole life. And then when we split up, I kind of went off track for a few years, drinking very heavily again, going out partying all the time. And although I was holding jobs down and I was good at what I did as a job, so I wasn't completely off the rails, I just was not healthy. And obviously with drinking and bad food comes weight gain, and I put an awful lot of weight on. And then in my early 30s, I was in a very, very toxic relationship, which basically made me lose all my friends, isolated me from everything and everyone. And that kind of led me into my early 30s. Well, I was really unhealthily overweight, very isolated, didn't have any friends anymore, didn't really have anyone in my life apart from my parents, and it was just very, very lonely. Still holding a job down, and I was doing very well in my career, and that's something that I've always maintained. So I've always had this anchor of my job, which is great. And then for a couple of years during that period, just before COVID, I became really unhealthily obsessed with exercise. Like, I would actually get up at 3:30 in the morning. I'd be at the gym at 4:30. I'd spend 2 hours there, go home, shower and start work. I did that every single day for 2 years. And I was absolutely obsessed with it, completely obsessed with losing as much weight as possible. It became this really toxic cycle in my head. I was exhausted because I wasn't eating properly, and I was doing all this exercise, and it just was not healthy. I was so unhealthy. It was ridiculous. Then COVID hit, the gyms closed, started working out at home, and then you start thinking, I'm going to have a glass of wine at 5 o'clock, and then you stop working out because it's COVID, so you can't go out, and then you're eating for comfort. The weight just piled on again, and then piled on, and then piled on. And then in 2022, I lost my dad. He'd been poorly for a very long time. He had Parkinson's and Parkinson's dementia for about 20 years. And even though he was only 65 when he passed away, I think losing him really changed something in me and really made me reassess my whole life. I left a very, very stressful job, got the job that I'm in now, which I absolutely love. Honestly, changing my job was one of the best things I've ever done. And then during 2023, I lost around 50 pounds completely naturally, no jabs, no medication, just working out at home, eating properly and looking after myself. And by the end of 2023, I was actually back at my target weight again. And I was so proud of myself, and I thought, this is it, we've cracked it, we've done it. And then my next challenge was to quit vaping. Such a bad habit. So I decided to try and quit vaping. Around the same time, I also had to attend the funeral of a friend's mum, and it was at the same crematorium as where my dad's funeral had been 18 months early. And it completely triggered me. And it made me realise that I hadn't grieved my dad properly at all. And suddenly all of that grief just hit me properly for the first proper time since my dad passed. At the same time, I'm dealing with my mum, who has got blood cancer, which is incurable and has good periods and bad periods. It's always there in the background. And then on top of that, I then lost my best friend of 30 years because she basically decided to ghost me for no good reason. So there was just grief everywhere in my life in one form or another. And I'm quitting vaping, which is the hardest thing I've ever done at the same time. So I'm going through all of this. My body is craving vaping, which sounds so insignificant, but I think if you've ever tried to quit smoking, it's just so difficult. And as I've said in my previous videos, food has always been my coping mechanism. And if I'm honest, during that time, I didn't care about myself. The grief was just overwhelming. Didn't care about my health at all. Didn't care about how I looked. I didn't care about anything really, if I'm completely honest. So I just stuffed myself with food. I just ate my feelings. And that's when I got to the weight that I was when I started using Mounjaro. And that's the heaviest I've ever been. So towards the end of 2024, I started to try to lose weight again. Started to do exactly what I'd done the year before, exercising, eating properly, trying to be healthy. I knew what to do because I've done it before, but nothing was happening. The scales just were not shifting at all. My hormones had changed a lot over that time. Now I'm at early 40s. Everything was just very, very different. And I've been hearing about these weight loss jabs on TV and online, and I thought, do you know what? Let's just give this a go. I previously tried Wegovy a couple of years before. Just made me feel sick. But then I'd heard about Mounjaro, and this was this newer one, and I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to give it a go. It's 100 quid. Let's just try it. And honestly, it was amazing. I didn't have any side effects. I didn't feel ill. I felt amazing straight away, and I was losing weight every week. And in my mind, I just felt like I'd found this magic cure. And then the prices went up by 3 times in September, and I was just devastated. So to go from paying £100 to suddenly £330, there was no way I could afford that. And a really big reason for that is my cats. So you've probably already seen them in my videos, my little family of mini panthers. And I know people will just think, well, they're just cats, but 3 of them have got epilepsy, and their medication alone is £200 every couple of months. They need blood tests every 6 months, which costs about £400 each. So financially, there wasn't a world where I could justify spending £330 a month on Mounjaro anymore, no matter how much it helped me. So I made the decision to taper down properly, put all of the habits in place, and kind of come off it. And that's where we are now. And obviously you all know the rest from my other videos. However, what you don't know is the history of the cats. So the reason I ended up with 7 cats in the first place is because the day after my dad passed away, a stray turned up on my patio, and that stray is now Shadow. Shadow got pregnant, and there weren't any shelters that would take her in, so I took her in to look after her and her babies, and was planning to get them all adopted. I actually helped her give birth, which was the craziest thing ever. And suddenly we've got these 3 boys. I got them neutered, got Shadow done as well. I was going to get them all adopted, and then I gave them names, and that was probably the worst thing that I could have done, because as soon as I gave them names, there was no way I was ever getting rid of them. And that's why we've got a Nala and a Luna, who are boys, because I just gave them random names. So we've got 2 boys that have got girls' names, but they suit their names now, I think. So that's how we ended up with 7 cats, because I already had 3, and then we ended up with the other 4. And then in January 2025, Simba had a fit, and then he got diagnosed with epilepsy. Then in the September, the same thing happened with Nala. Then in the December, the same thing happened with Luna. So over the space of a year, I went from having 3 healthy little boys to having 3 cats with epilepsy. And it's expensive, but honestly, I would not change them for the world. They're my little source of love and joy every day. They're funny, they keep me company, and luckily I work from home, so I can keep an eye on them too. And honestly, I think now for the first time in my life, what I actually want is to be happy and healthy. And I feel that I'm in a position where I'm not chasing this skinniness anymore. I've got a few pounds to lose, but I feel like I'm in a really great headspace right now. Also, because I'm in my 40s, I've really got to think about my future and my old age. I want mobility, I want energy, I want quality of life. I want to grow older and still be fit enough to actually live my life properly. And I think that mindset is very different to anything I've had before, which was always, let's get as skinny as possible. I don't want to be as skinny as possible anymore. So that's me. That's how I got here, and how and why I'm trying to approach things differently now. I honestly appreciate every person who has supported me on this channel so far. It genuinely means so much to me. I hope my videos can help some people who are looking to come off the medication, and I look forward to seeing you all again really soon.